Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live. This is what you call an absolute scramble of a show, guys, with Origin teams around the corner. Stay tuned for that towards the end of the show. We're actually going to go through our Origin teams. You can see my voice is a little, you can hear my voice is a little bit husky again. Titans got to win. What can I say? We're here to recap Indigenous round and our best bets. Winnie, how are you, my brother?
I'm going all right, thanks, mate. I'm relieved to at least go 2-1 on the best bets. We hit a $13 same gamer in Winnie's Kitchen. Should be a good round, really, but I still kind of left thinking what could have been. I mean, mixed matchup lost again, where that's the case. Mixed matchup's not a true multi, so you don't have to get both parts right, but you always have to get one game more correct than the other. And the one I got wrong this weekend was blown out of the water because I liked Cronulla against Penrith, which is probably, in terms of the handicap, probably the biggest loss of the entire season. If you talk about a 3-point favourite gone down 42-0, not too many other kind of 40-plus swings come to mind. I guess the other one would be Cronulla when they were 12-point favourites against the Tigers and lost by 30-odd. So that unfortunately sunk the mixed matchup. And what also kind of gets me is what could have been with some other bets. You know, Cowboys so easily could have been a bet. I mean, we'll talk about Bulldogs. The line went back down to 3.5. If it's 3.5 on Tuesday and I know Sexton's my halfback, I'm reloading with the Bulldogs, but I pass it and then they win by 30 despite being down. I mean, New Zealand was that close to a bet. Then I was glad I didn't have them with all the outs, and they get the outright win over my Finns. So there's probably a few that were left on the table, but you'll always second guess that. I guess I'm probably just never happy.
Mate, that's the ups and downs of punting. You can't pick them all. You wish you could, and then there's ones that you do pick, but you don't back it. Plenty of new viewers here on Instagram. That was as high as 700 at one stage. So if you are new to our show, welcome to the TryPod. This is a live podcast every Tuesday to preview the round and every Sunday within 15 minutes after the final whistle. What we do is we go through game by game, preview, review, hand out best bets. Winnie, the man above me, has a 9-year winning record on the NRL. That means if you follow his tips, you would have won money for 9 years in a row. And today we've also got a bit of a special episode because at the end of our recap of game by game, we will go through our State of Origin sides. All right, Winnie, let's start at Thursday night, which seems an eternity ago now. The Bulldogs beat the Dragons 44 points to 12. My tip here was Dragons plus 4.5. And I thought that line was a little bit generous as I viewed these sides really similar coming in. I didn't think the Bulldogs were this much better than the Dragons, but this was a completely different Bulldogs side to what we saw at Magic Round, especially in the second half where their energy went to a new level. It was really high. It was contagious for all the different players around, high energy plays up around the ball, brilliant stuff. Whereas last week in Magic Round, I thought they looked really tired and lethargic. The Dragons legitimately showed no signs of being the fresher side, and they were coming off the bye. And that was a big reason why I liked them here, because the Bulldogs, of course, had 3 close games in their last 3 there. The Dragons' second half defense, yes, they had an injury to Jack Bird, just appalling. Possibly the worst I have ever seen in terms of effort, structure, and technique in the NRL. Now, I'm very careful not to criticize professional athletes in technical areas of the game. They will always know more than me. But I think an under sixes player could have told you it was pretty poor what the Dragons put out there with some of their attempts. And it follows the theme of the Dragons season, Winnie. Just inconsistency throughout. So I want to give a quick snapshot of that. They smash the Titans. They get embarrassed by the Dolphins. Cowboys beat them 20+. They then beat Manly. Then the Knights smash them by 20. Then they beat the Tigers and the Warriors. And we kind of go, okay, Dragons have found something now. They've ironed out that inconsistency. They then get destroyed by the Roosters on Anzac Day, compete well enough with the Sharks, beat the Rabbitohs, have a bye, and come back and get smashed here. So I just cannot wrap my head around the level of inconsistency we've got from the Dragons this year. What do you make of that, and what do you make of this game?
So just touch on the way you led in the show. Yes, 9 years winning record, but I've told you stop saying that because if you'd back my tips this year, you are not winning money. We're down, so we don't hide away from that. Tonight, I'll go extra fast as well on my thoughts. I reckon everyone's just thinking Origin. We are going to dedicate basically the second half of tonight to who we would have picked and also the news that's coming through because there is a rumoured Blues team that's out and we can continue to monitor that. If I can, I will even grab a graphic and share it. This game, as I said, I've liked the Dogs. I haven't really wavered from that even when they've had disappointing performances. I talk about them, that's a team that should make the finals. I backed them a Magic Round and they have a halftime lead and a lead by 8 in the second half. control it and get home against Canberra, and you get Jamin Salmon as a late withdrawal in that game. Then a week later, Salmon comes in, scores 2 tries. What else have I said? Like, I don't pretend to know more than NRL coaches, but I just say what I reckon. And how many times have I said Hutchison is not the right halfback for this team? How long will it take the Dogs to figure it out? They put Sexton in. He lays on the very first try is off his boot. They score 44 points. And they were down 12-6 at halftime. That's the crazy thing. You know, I was kind of glad I didn't touch the Dogs halftime. That's the type of game the Dragons want to play. They want to make it ugly. They want it to be tight. But once the Dogs got in front this time, just everything clicked and the Dragons basically gave up, which is really disappointing. And that's another thing I haven't really wavered on this year. Even when the Dragons have had their surprise results and their results that have looked impressive, I've never considered this St. George team, you know, a top 8 side, where others kind of had speculated that Flanagan had turned them into, you know, a really competitive team that's still a little way off. And origin implications, Burton was excellent again. And, you know, Kiraz has been that good and was awesome again on Thursday night that his name's been tossed around. But I think he will just fall short this season. We can talk about who's in the rumoured Blues backline and who we would have picked, again, a little later on.
Yeah, I've actually got some different mail to you there. I heard Drew Hutchinson was rested due to the uncertainty around that Blues halfback position. So, no.
Madge asked that Hutchinson be rested, so he could definitely pick him.
Maybe a bit of mind games there just at play. But no, in all seriousness, Hutchinson, great goer, great 14, covers a few positions. But I agree with you. I don't think he's ever going to be an out-and-out NRL 7. And Toby Sexton was the right move for the Doggies. Their attack looked greatly improved. Let's move to Friday night, 6 p.m. The Cowboys get up over the Tigers, 42 points to 18. My tip here was Cowboys at the line. Whilst it did cover, it literally come down to the final pass of this game. And I just thought it was unbelievable how, yet again, the Cowboys can start a game of football so well and then somehow just crap the bed and let their opposition straight back into it. They are not learning their lesson as far as that is concerned this year. We spoke about the Tigers. We thought they're probably not going to have enough points in them to beat the Cowboys here. They'd only scored over 17 points one time this season. Make that 2 now. They got up to 28 and they were still beaten by 14 points. So I think that stat in itself sums up how poor the defense is by both of these sides. No one rises in my book. No one gets lowered. We pretty much got what we expected, besides maybe a bit of an improvement there from the Tigers' attack. But I can't say too much more about this game when we got exactly what we thought we would. How did you see it?
So I kind of wished I was on the Cowboys and then it's 20-0 early. And I'm going, man, you know, this is just an easy one. Like, yes, you want to break down, you know, the matchups. And yes, I generally feel the Tigers are a bit underrated and the Tigers should have gone closer in Magic Round when I was on them, plus 12.5. But that was just a terrible spot. The Cowboys with a spring in their step off the Magic Round win, coming home, clearly going to take care of business. Origin players want to make their case. And I thought, yeah, huge scores on the cards, as it was last time the Tigers travelled up to Townsville. It's 20-0. But then doesn't the game just swing? Next thing you know it, the Tigers are fighting back in this one. And, I mean, we find ourselves in the second half, a 1-try game, and the Tigers are on the attack. Like, the win wasn't even assured for the Cowboys. And all I can say about the second half is the win was in question a little bit when the Tigers did cut it to within a try, but you could probably say most of the game you felt North Queensland, something crazy would have to happen for them to blow it. But if you were on the line in this game, like, what a roller coaster. I think it was 12.5 when we did the pod Tuesday, and it had been 11.5 earlier in the day. I reckon if I could have got 11.5, I'd have been on Cowboys. 12.5, it had probably gone too far for me. Then it ends up being 14.5 on game day, right? So 11.5 through to 14.5 during the week. That's important because if you played the line at the best possible time, you won no matter who you picked, right? That's what we love to see. That's the advantage the punters have because the final score is 14. But when it's a 1-try game and the Tigers have fought all the way back into it, you definitely felt more confident with the plus points. And it looked like it was going to be a really tight finish. Then the Cowboys get out to a lead of 16, and it looks like the Cowboys are ultimately going to cover. And it's not until a try with 2 minutes to go by the Tigers that cuts the lead back down to 10. And now the Tigers are covering any line, no matter what it was all week. And the Cowboys get the ball the final minute of the game, make a line break, get onto the Tigers line. And as you say, the final pass of the game out to the winger to cover the line, if you got it. before Friday, you covered the line. And obviously, if you played margin 13 plus, which is very common, and people might have had that in their same game. But if you did play the line on the day, you needed Valentine Holmes' kick, which actually went wide. So that would have been a horrendous beat for Tigers backers. But there probably were some Tigers backers that took the points earlier in the week too, and lost on that last second try. So even though I'm annoyed because like I would have been on North Queensland, I almost feel like if I was on them, we wouldn't have got that try right at the end, the way this season's been. And sometimes I would also just finish the game by saying there isn't always a correct side in every game. I try to look back at these in the recap and say, like, in hindsight, like the team to bet on would have been Team A for these reasons, just so we can try and pick up on that and improve our punting moving forward. But sometimes there are games that are just going to, be pendulum, swing back and forth. It could have gone either way. You're hoping to win, half of those. I don't think we have won half of those this year, but it was probably less stressful to just not have a best bet on the line, I suppose, as this game just rocked back and forth towards the end.
Yeah, a few pendulum swings. And as you said, we could have had the Cowboys for a best bet. But I think when you're waiting for literally the last pass of the game to win your best bet, there would have been a lot of luck involved there. So that's okay there. Plenty of comments rolling through here on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We are a live show. For those that are on Instagram, we will not be able to bring yours up on screen, but you can move to Facebook and YouTube if you wish to have your comments brought up. Friday night.
Including Colts on the screen, who had 13 and a half. And he's one of the people I'm talking about that goes down on the final play of the game. That's a gut punch, mate. Sorry to hear that.
You would have hated to have got up and made a coffee with 5 seconds to go. God, I'm really sorry to hear that, mate.
You'd know better if you're on the Tigers, I reckon.
Yeah, probably, actually. Alrighty, let's move to the next Friday night game. The Sea Eagles beat the Storm 26-20. My tip here was the Storm, especially once Jerome Hughes was a confirmed starter. When we recorded our preview, we both sort of thought there's a chance he'll be rested with the bye next week. He does come in, and I thought this was a game of two halves. Where in the first half, Manly were really superb. They were clinical, and that led to the Storm really pushing it to try to get back into the game and forcing uncharacteristic errors, trying to compete with a Manly side that was playing really great footy. Now, the Storm did manage a try on the brink of halftime, and I'm sure Manly fans at that point got very nervous based on their last three games where they have let teams back into the game. But fortunately for Manly fans, the Storm peppered their line. Like, this game went right into the final play of the game, and Manly refused to give up. Incredible grit, determination. You could sense how much they wanted that victory. And although the Storm have won so many tight games this year and won the final moment of games so many times, the body language from the Manly Sea Eagles at that final 3 minutes was so positive that I had a gut feeling they're just going to find a way to get home there, and they absolutely did. So a bland game overall, I would say, but that finish in the final 5 or so minutes absolutely made up for it. And despite the tight scoreline, I think Manly were the better team for the majority of this game. How do you see it, and would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, really important game at home. It's a rival. It hasn't been as great of a rivalry recently, but off the back of Manly losing two really tight games in Queensland, it threatened to derail their season, and they lost Tom Trbojevic among that as well. And you're coming into Origin selections, which always kind of hurts Manly because they're a top-heavy side, and they knew their captain. And by all accounts, now two Origin captains play for Manly, if you didn't hear that rumour, which we'll address later on. But Jake Trbojevic is going to lead the Blues as well. What an important game this was for Manly to get the 2 points. And I thought that was a major takeaway at the end. You could tell how much it meant to them. This game, they definitely circled the wagons and definitely lifted in this. And again, I probably am annoyed for not taking Manly, but one of the bigger reasons to take Manly on Tuesday would have been Hughes may not play. And so Hughes did actually play, and then I thought it was a fair line. And Manly just outplayed Melbourne. One talking point, second half, when the Storm trailed, I'm pretty sure it was 20-14. Harry Grant chooses to take the 2. Now, we have not seen this for a long time. Funnily enough, people can fact check me, but I reckon maybe 15, 20 years ago, I saw a team down 6 take the 2, and it was the Melbourne Storm. And I reckon it was against Manly in a game they won by 2 points. And I remember Cam Smith explaining after the game that they just felt that defense was really tight. Points were coming at a premium. You needed to score twice to win. So there is some logic to that you're down 6, you take the 2, right? If you catch up by at least one more try, those 2 points are invaluable, because if you score one more try for the remainder of the game, if you miss the conversion, you needed that 2 to level. And even if you get the conversion, you needed that 2 to get you in front. However, if you lose the game by a try, you will rue the opportunity to attack the other team's line, maybe leaving points on the table. I could only assume that it was a tactical choice, that Manly likes the cycle a bit more. Manly likes to kind of play the rhythm and get fatigue into the game with their style, and maybe Melbourne actually didn't mind a stop-start, so therefore banked the 2 points and backed themselves to come up with one more chance. But it was actually Manly who scored next after that moment, and then the Storm gave Manly a fright with a late try and had the opportunity to potentially level up, but Manly hung on. And of course, DCE was excellent, as he always is. Garrick too, and Tommy Talau, big one, I think, bagging a couple of meat pies as well.
Mate, he is killing it on and off the field there, Tommy Talau. And that's kind of the the benefit of, and sometimes to our detriment when we record on the Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. There was the Hughes uncertainty. But then, as you touched on the previous game, we got a better line there for the Cowboys game. Or if you were a Cowboys backer, rather, you'd get a better line there. So there's some benefits and some cons to it. Before we move on, there's a comment here on Instagram from James Mackin. He says, "Are you using a voice changer?" No, this is what happens when the Titans win and I've got to record the same day. My voice is hanging on by a thread. Those that were at the punt party there for Magic Round, they're probably thinking it wasn't as bad as that. That was a horrible way to lose my voice. All right, Saturday Arvo. Roosters beat the Raiders 44 points to 16. We were both really keen on the Roosters this week, and ultimately, I think we both nailed our game analysis of this one. Once the Raiders fell behind in this one, they did manage the try off a kick. I was at the ground. I thought it was relatively lucky, but from that point in the game, it was largely the Roosters, where they were just dominant in all facets of the game. Quicker ruck speeds, better contact in defense, better kicking game, more intensity to everything they did. Like, there really wasn't a single area of rugby league that you could say the Raiders did better in this game. But then when you compare the rosters of both these sides, it's almost obvious this kind of result would happen. I think the only surprise for me coming from this game is the fact that Dominic Young did not score. If I told you need to build a same game multi and 8 Roosters are going to score, I think most of Australia is going to put Dom Young in that bunch there somewhere. And he didn't cross the chalk. He was one that didn't score one of the Roosters' tries there. I was very happy when Victor Radley scored the first try, mate. Get that out of the way nice and early. So how did you see this one, Mr. Chef Winnie, Mr. Double Digit, same game multi-man? Let's go.
Let me bring in a comment. Damien, I found that intriguing comment. In round 8, I said, how are you taking the Tigers line against Broncos? I mentioned this to you in the chat. You ripped me a new one. You've gone 2-13 since Karma. Geez, I have gone really bad since round 8. I don't know about 2-13. I feel like we've won at least 4 or 5 since then. Regardless, we've gone bad. Okay, but to go back to, I actually think I recall it. I went Tigers first half line against Brisbane. They actually matched Brisbane in the first half. Went down, I think, by 10 or 12 at halftime. Remember, there is a try right at the end by Reece Walsh, as well as the Appy one ruled out. Thanks for reminding me. My point was only that Damien gave it to me after the game, and I said, if it was that obvious, wouldn't you just, back Brisbane, if it was a certainty? And my other point was Brisbane's not a certainty every week. And you kind of look at, like, they lost to the Titans today. They beat Manly by 1 point a week ago, depleted Manly. So that's all I was getting at. I'll try and be respectful to everyone. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings too bad, Damien, if that's the comment you're referring to. I have definitely questioned, have I got bad karma, though, with some of the results I've gotten lately, for sure. But I'm just trying to give everyone genuine advice. Luckily, the advice I gave on Saturday afternoon was, spot on, not only laying the 11.5 with the Roosters, and, they win by 22, but Winnie's Kitchen, I came out and gave them out 20+ in that multi-halftime lead, and Radley shifted to a right edge to score a try, and he walks through untouched, 4 minutes in for the first try. So that set us up perfectly. Not that the multi never looked like losing, because the Roosters were only up. Sorry, I just said, is that score correct? The Roosters won by, 28. I said 22. It is correct. They were up 22 late, is what I meant to say. And the Raiders actually had a try disallowed. The Savage try had a couple of close calls. And so then the multi was definitely in danger before the Roosters ran the other way. Teddy had a field day, doesn't sound like he did do enough to retain his spot in Origin. You knew that this was an important weekend for him, but other players in that position, especially Dylan Edwards, that we'll talk about in the following game that I got totally wrong, also had massive performances. Manu, always so hard to handle as well. And it did seem to me like, although this was sixth on the ladder hosting seventh, there's a clear class gulf between these teams. And the Roosters, off a disappointing loss in Magic Round, came in, quite feisty and look like a team that can win the comp for sure. And the Raiders, I'd have to call it, despite the fact you win a couple tight ones, and I think things went Canberra's way in those games, a bit more of a reality check for Sticky's men in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. The Raiders are missing some key men, and the Chooks were, there were some hot Chooks in that one, definitely. Let's move to the next Saturday game. Panthers beat the Sharks 42-0. Now, I can safely put my hands up on this show right now and say I had no idea this was coming. My tip was Sharkies -3.5. I thought that was a line they could definitely cover. And I did note in the preview show that I'm wary of the Panthers' comeback potential and not playing bad 2 weeks in a row, but I expected their response to come defensively. The Sharks didn't threaten them once. They didn't have to respond defensively. They just absolutely pumped them with the ball in hand. This was something else. And where to start for the Sharks? Every time I get high on this team as a genuine contender, they go and do something like this. It's really disappointing. And I got chipped on Instagram this week, mate, when I still had the Panthers as my favorite for the premiership above the Sharks, who I moved to genuine contender. That wasn't enough for Sharks fans. They had to rip me and say, oh, I don't watch footy enough. I don't know what I'm seeing. And it's not the fact they lost, because anyone can lose on any given day. It's how they lost. Now, we look back at the Storm and the Roosters wins, and for me, whilst they're still impressive, I start to question, was there other factors at play? Were the Storm off there to allow them to win without Nicho Hines? Will the Roosters concede 38 points the next time they meet the Sharks? And I'm left with all these question marks because they come up against the Panthers side, and whilst there are excuses, no Nicho Hines, the Panthers certainly didn't sit there and make excuses and say, well, we didn't have Nathan Cleary, so this will be a tight one. They literally just reminded us all why they are premiership contenders. It was unbelievable, and I almost feel ashamed that I was so confident the Sharks would cover that 4-point line there. I absolutely doubted the Panthers, and a big egg on my face in this one, mate. The Panthers were brilliant. How did you see it?
So my best bet here is Cronulla -2.5. And these are the games I can actually take very well. It's going to sound funny, but this is just how I view it. I know there'll be games I get totally right and will win, pretty easy. And you could even put Roosters in that category, the previous game. And I know there'll be games where I just get it wrong, but it's almost like, if you think of it like a horse race and it's a 2-horse race and you're looking at one horse versus the other, all right, what's the form? All right, who's the jockey? What's the tactics going to be in the race? And then one horse beats the other by 30 lengths. You almost just kind of go, well, everything about the matchup was meaningless because something else was just clearly very wrong. Like, it was so unexpected. There's so many teams that have come into matches this season and with a massive advantage in talent and ability to their opponent and don't win by 30 plus, let alone 40 plus. And then you get the Sharks going as well as anyone in the comp. Are they capable of laying an egg? Sure. They had one shocker this season, the Tigers game we've referred to a few times. Luckily, I picked that out. I had the Tigers line that night. Not that I thought Tigers would win by 30, but at least I picked the right side there. And as for Penrith, of course, beware. A good team off a bad loss. Penrith lost on Sunday to the Warriors, but I thought that would be a fairly logical and common narrative that would be picked up by a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are just going to go, when in doubt, back the triple premiers. And I don't think it's that simple. And I had this other theory that I didn't say on Tuesday because I didn't know for sure. I'm going to say it now, even though it's been proven totally wrong. But I really thought the smartest coaches don't really want many players picked for Origin. Like, the less players you get picked for Origin, the better season you may have. Because for one, you take the miles off them, you take the kind of intensity and drain out of them. You also have them playing maybe even with an extra edge if they get snubbed. And I almost thought, like, as disappointed as Ivan was after the Warriors loss, where I think he said a total of under 60 words in the press conference, I just didn't actually know if Ivan would really, truly emphasize this result at this point in the season, because this actually felt like a pivotal game. Madge was in attendance, looking worse than me watching some of these games. He didn't look too thrilled. I could almost see Ivan just not making the be-all, end-all the win here, because he didn't necessarily want some of his guys who would be fringe Origin to have to go through it all again. He'd probably almost prefer it if a few were left on the outside looking in. But how wrong I was, because Penrith served up one of their most impressive performances in the last 4 years. And that's clearly saying something. But when you're considering you're away from home, you're an underdog, you're playing top of the ladder, you don't have Nathan Cleary. And Penrith gets up, 6-0, 12-0. I'm kind of like, all right, Sharks have got a bit of work to do. But we just saw Cronulla scored 38 points last week against the solid Roosters side. And then it starts to get to 18. And you're like, hang on. This isn't just a deficit that they're going to have to climb. They can't stop Penrith. And Penrith are just absolutely relentless. And it's, Edwards, I think, has grabbed the Blues number one. That's certainly rumoured. And in fact, the fact that they've basically said Jake Trbojevic is captaining the Blues would all but confirm that. So Madge got a front row seat to that. But Luai as well, taking on the 7 jersey and playing both sides of the ruck, because they've got Cole there, obviously Nathan out. Nico Hines has an HIA 35 minutes in. So I would not make any excuses for Cronulla, but they did lose Nico for the final 45, but more the Origin implications. He's obviously dealt with this calf issue, scratched in Melbourne, doubtful, but played against Roosters, played well. Goes off for the HIA, and they reckon just the cooling down of the HIA on top of maybe half time, the calf tightened up and they didn't want to bring him back on. But I think by the time he was eligible to come back on, the score was 22, if not 28-0. So there could be a little bit of wave the white flag, and even do a favour to Nico, who's worked so hard to get himself in the Origin frame, had to be the favourite for the 7 coming into this weekend. Give him every opportunity to represent the Blues. And I think I'll spoil ahead that you and I still would pick him at 7 with the asterisk that if he's good to go. But it definitely adds to the calculations for Madge, because if you've got to nurse a guy through prep and you've got a new squad coming together, it affects your build-up, your lead-up, right? It affects your combinations. And you take a guy into a game that's the highest intensity of the season with those question marks, and then it could go at any moment. So do you just pick the guy that's been there before? Jerome Luai is still a hell of a player, much maligned and gets criticism. And in retrospect, maybe Luai was not always the best choice for the Blues. Maybe he has had more his fair share of opportunities, but he may still be the best option right now. Remember, you and I speculated doomsday scenarios, and I said, look, this won't be the case, but what if Moses' foot still hurt? What if Hines' calf's still gone? Who do they turn to? And we said that Luai out of position would actually be the best choice, unless you want to pick Chad Townsend or Isaiah Katoa for the Finns. So it's actually come to that. Now I'm hearing Luai could actually be in line for the 6 for the Blues ahead of Burton, is what the rumoured team was suggesting as well. So whether that's on the back of last night, again, Madge in the house and Penrith utterly dominant with Luai pulling the strings, or whether Madge had that in mind already, we may not know. Be very interested to hear how much stock he put into that win, because it was only just one game. But what can you say about Cronulla? Did they just expect it was going to happen for them in this one? How do you take your opponent lightly when this team, I don't know if you noticed what happened in the grand final the last 3 years. That's the head scratcher. Penrith responding like a champion caught me by surprise, just how great the Panthers were. But I can certainly understand that. But even if Cronulla had been at their best, Cronulla wouldn't have won. But how Cronulla was so far off the boil, that's the most concerning part for the Sharkies.
Yeah, and we came into this one looking for answers and clarity around the Blues State of Origin side, and there's still plenty of question marks there, especially around the spine positions. And then the other factor is question marks for the Sharks now. Whilst they did win against the Roosters last round, they did concede 30, and they conceded 42 points here. Now, for a team that was on a 7-game win streak and sat in first position coming into this, that's certainly conceding far too many points. So question marks for the Sharks. Meanwhile, the Panthers give us exactly what we've come to expect from a fantastic club there. All right, Saturday night, the Rabbitohs beat the Eels 42 points to 26. Great attacking game of footy here, but we probably can't say the same defensively. A fun watch nonetheless. These are two sides that I don't think many people have playing finals anymore. But when they do throw the footy around and attack like they did, it does still make for an entertaining watch. My tip here was Bunnies head-to-head and a Johnston anytime try. Not huge odds or anything to brag about there, but winning tips are winning tips. Really, I think this game delivered everything I thought it would, but I do stand firm in my belief. I have no idea how the Eels were as favourites here. Even when Cody Walker was still in that lineup, the Eels were minus 2.5-point favourites. I think the bookies absolutely got that one wrong. A lot to like here as a Rabbitohs fan, but not enough to suddenly be back on them with any firm belief. Meanwhile, for the Eels, I think everyone would agree it is season over with Trent Barrett there as head coach, but certainly they do get Mitchell Moses and Clint Gutherson back next week, so that will be of benefit for them and potentially building towards the future there. Did you have any key takeaways from this one?
So my best bet was on Souths as well. Also thought Souths would win on Tuesday, but this is one of my best bets of the year, probably. I know that it was a high variance game. I definitely agreed with that, and I chatted to some people about that in the comments, and I think some people in the group and in the comments were dead on, talking about if you're going to back Souths, you back them with an alt line, or people had said in the group, when Souths finally win a game, they'll win 13 plus, because they're the type of team you don't really like them when the acid's on, but when things are going their way, that they can really go their way, and that's ultimately what happens. And you don't really want to best bet in a high variance game, because both these teams have interim coaches, both down in their luck. Like, you wouldn't have been shocked if either team kind of won this game by 20 points, right? But I just felt like the personnel available to South, they're the stronger team. They've shown me signs of fight the last month where they've been totally written off, and I've tried to say they're not a total write-off team. Indigenous round, and like the Latrell's been back a couple of weeks now. You got some star Indigenous players on this Souths team, and the Eels are clearly a mess. And it's a week where you sacked Arthur, but that's not necessarily going to get a positive response from the troops. There's all these reasons why I like Souths. And then a day after I tipped the try handicap, Cody Walker's scratched, like out of the blue. One of the most important, influential players to his team in Indigenous round, no less. So we go into the game without closing line value. We don't have a great bet. I think actually the odds was $1.80 to have equal tries or more, and it was $1.80 on the day of the kickoff, which is why I say that's a great bet. If you got the same odds and we thought we had Cody Walker in, no reason to think otherwise, and he didn't play, then we had a catastrophe go against us and still ended up with fair odds, and it still did not hamper Souths. Another game where a team actually got out to a 20-point lead. It was just all Souths. Para could barely touch the ball. Souths could barely put a foot wrong, and then the game swings. And Parramatta's the team that scores the next 3 tries. So after Souths were up 4 tries to none, it's back to 4 tries to 3. Now, again, some things went wrong for South Sydney. They lost Jack Whiten. I wasn't sure, Clarky. Did you hear what his injury was? Was it shoulder, hear what it was. HIA? He went off. Souths had a head clash. Jai Arrow and Milne had a head clash, and Arrow had to go HIA at one point. Souths had 2 or 3 players in the HIA and Latrell in the sin bin. Now, fair enough. You do a hip drop, you get sent to the sin bin, right? Which is what happened to Latrell Mitchell, and that was right around the time where Para made us nervous. But then in the second half, Offengawi puts on a hip drop and got put on report, but it wasn't a sin bin, which at that point in the game, I think Souths would have run over the top of Para, having survived the period without Latrell, if the fair ruling was made. So I can't understand that one, but there's no point really crying about it or talking about this game for too much longer. Yeah, you're up 20-0, 22-0. There was a little scare, but do you expect anything less with Souths? This is the type of team that's not going to be consistent for 80. And in the end, Souths wanted it more. Souths were better. And despite Latrell off for a period of time, and you lose White and Walker before the kickoff, you still win the game 13 plus, which was a nice way to cap the night.
100%. Now, Winnie, I wasn't being rude there. The New South Wales Blues team just dropped, so that's why I was on my phone. What I think we do is we go through our predicted Maroons sides at the end as expected, but I have sent you an image of that Blues side. I think we get through these next 2 games, and maybe if you could add that to the stream and we can bring it up on screen instead of our predicted
Absolutely,
lineups.
I will. So talk to us about the game that you really want to talk about next, mate. Talk to us about Broncos-Titans, and let us know in the comments what you guys made of this. Equal biggest upset of the season. Clarky's going to be up and about. Let's give him the floor, and I will tee up the the Origin graphic.
Thank you very much, mate. I absolutely live for results like this. The Gold Coast Titans, they head to Suncorp Stadium and they defeat the Brisbane Broncos 36 points to 34. Absolutely hearty stuff here by the Titans. And in my opinion, as a long-time Titans fan, one of our greatest wins in history. Now, we did beat the Broncos last year. That was without Tino, and it was also the week Justin Holbrook was sacked as our head coach, and that was a very special win. We spoke on the previous show how that might not actually benefit the Titans because the Broncos are kind of aware of that surprise factor and how they need to be another level above. And to be honest, even as a Titans fan, I didn't tip us in this one. I didn't see how we could get to that extra level missing so many of our star players. We do. We are the smallest club in the league and we never get our dues. And because I'm such a big Titans fan, at risk of my praise for the side just passing off as obvious bias, I probably don't praise this as much as I should after wins, especially ones like this. Now, no Jaden Campbell at fullback. All halves options with experience and another fullback option in AJ Brimson, Tanner Boyd, and Kieran Foran unavailable. That is majority of our salary cap right there. We had forwards playing in the outside backs. We had our winger, we had our centre, Brian Kelly, move to the other wing and play winger. We had no Jojo Fafita, no Philip Sammy, no Harley Smith-Shields. So besides Brian Kelly, we didn't have a fit centre at the club. We obviously know about Tino. We didn't have our captain. Who's been our next best forward this year? It's been Jimmy Joloff. He's unavailable as well. Now, dead set, for me, this was another Des Hasler performance, and it was just incredible. Like, I know I'm a Titans fan. I hope those words don't fall short because I'm such a big fan. This was an incredible victory and one of the most famous victories in the Titans' short history. So proud of the team today. Absolutely special, mate. How did you see it, though?
So you explained all the reasons why it was so improbable, why I did not see this coming. But just to add to that, these teams met on a Sunday afternoon, and I want to say it was in the final third or maybe second half of the season last year, like in pretty recent memory. And the Titans didn't have Tino that day and were 13-plus underdogs and got the outright upset, which I thought was to your detriment because Brisbane was not going to allow you to do that as well. But then you get into what happened during the game, the injuries early. A young man, was it the fellow on debut? Was it Roberts? You tell
Tony
me.
Francis,
who gets injured, actually still scores the Titans' first try with one arm, right? But the Broncos are up 18-6 after Kelly error. So you're down. It's not even like your game went your way. You're down double digits in this game. The try before halftime was crucial. How often do we talk about just getting those points kind of right before the stroke of halftime? Like that was an awesome team try where the Titans kept the ball alive, shift right, left to right, offloads, but also that powerful finish by Aaron Clark definitely gives you something going into the half. Still managed to miss a conversion from in front, though. Luckily, that did not come back to burn you. And that's the second week in a row at Suncorp where you've missed from in front in a game that went right down to the wire. Second half, I think Brisbane scores first in the second half as well. And once again, no, I think the Titans, did pull it back, but it was a seesawing affair. But certainly Brisbane got the lead out by a couple of tries yet again. And I thought, all right, Titans have had their moment where they've given Brisbane a bit of a scare. The class is going to prevail. And you look at what Reece Walsh could do, actually more so in the first half, where every kick return had to be terrifying for you. And, I didn't have a dog in the fight, but I'm starting to think about Origin, and I do think Reece Walsh is so key for Queensland. And so I'm sure Brisbane fans can relate to this. When I watch Reece Walsh now, I feel like I'm watching my son play, and just hoping he doesn't get hurt every play because he plays such a physical brand and throws himself everywhere and got up a bit ginger a couple of times. But the Titans, so much fight. I think someone's stirring me up saying they're only 4 wins outside the 4, right? But I could just about name the 4 games they should have won. They're up 14 against the Knights. They get absolutely robbed down in Canberra. They give Manly 2 gift tries either side of halftime, lose to Manly by 4, and they get a bad call against Melbourne. And they blew games where they're actually favourites as well. So, not that you expect all the tight ones to go your way, but maybe, just maybe, people won't think I'm such a madman with a couple of these wins by the Titans when you consider how much, $2 or $3 million is on the sideline out of this team as well. that was not stacked with talent originally. So Titans all the fight back, but how did Brisbane lose? Because they took the opponent lightly, and the defensive desperation that got them the win, holding Manly to 12 points last week. And honestly, Brisbane's been as impressive as anyone in the comp with their resilience on their try line most games this year. That was absent today. I just thought Titans were able to turn the game without anything too elaborate. Who tore you apart? Who tore Brisbane apart today? Like a halves combination of Randall and Weaver. In fact, that Keanu Kinney, I think he's mentioned in the comment on screen, was unbelievable and awesome backup to have, an exciting kid. And, also we'll mention Fermor, who I believe would have done enough to get a Maroons jersey. And maybe, I don't know if you've got him in your team, Clarkey, but he's got to be in mine now after today. Thought he was unreal. Though there's rumours that Fafita might not be in there. Fafita wasn't too bad today. But you can be very proud of your boys, and Brisbane fans will be extremely disappointed because they're expected to win, because the talent was there to do so, despite the fact that Staggs is out, on top of course, Reynolds and stuff. Payne Haas played today, more than enough to win with for Brisbane, and I just think the team that was hungrier, got the 2 points, because it was actually 7 tries to 6 in the end, which included a late Brisbane try and a conversion to tie the game, and that was the only kick that Cogger missed all game long. So well deserved, mate. And that leads us into some Origin chat, although my Finns actually played over in New Zealand after that one.
Yep, one more game to get through before we get to our Origin chat. And for what it's worth, from what I've seen from the Titans these past 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to tip us for finals again next year. I know everyone said I was crazy when I did it this year. They thought you were crazy as well, but I'm seeing some real positive signs. And as you touched on,
for next year.
Yeah, for next year, I'm going to throw them straight in the 8 again.
AJ Brimson, Jaden Campbell. There's some good players to come back into this team.
The
I
8's very tight.
I would not write off 2024. It's probably one of those things where you're going to look back and you're going to rue those tight ones. Yep. And you're going to rue 15-6 agains down in Canberra to bring it up again. But you can't ride the season off the way that this team's playing. And that's 2 months straight. As Jerry points out, this Titans team's covered the line every single week, I reckon, for 7 straight, if not 8.
And I think for the Titans, if they hadn't have blown those opening 2 games where they versed the Dragons and the Bulldogs, which at that stage were perceivably 2 of the weakest teams in the competition, we now know that's not quite the case. But at the time, that was the information we had as footy fans. Then the Titans went to a bye in round 3. If they hadn't have started that season so poor and then got pumped by the Dolphins on the next game outside of the bye, we wouldn't have got these lines that we've been getting the last, 6 weeks now they've covered in a row.
That's very true. Absolutely. There was kind of a confirmation bias that nobody expected anything good coming from the Titans. And then when they were actually horrendous in the first 3 games, that they were completely written off. But now that I think about it, I cannot think of a line you haven't covered
since
round 4. And you covered the Cowboys line, which was round 5. So, Let us know if there was one. It's absolutely one at the most, but I think you've covered it every single line. So the team that everyone despised a month in is the most profitable team in sport. And that's, I could say I regret not being on the Titans in more of those cases. And I regret a few things about this season, but at least I haven't, gotten out in front of them too many times, because it is not the train wreck that they may have been perceived to be. And, things weren't what they seemed in the final game today either, because you had 4th playing 13th on the ladder and major outs for the home New Zealand side, who still got the underdog victory.
Yeah, man, I think for this game, the Warriors do beat the Dolphins 24 points to 20. Let me start there. For this game, I said Dolphins should win here, but with the people I was watching the game with, I said, even though the Warriors have a lot of people out, the Titans literally just won with a bunch of players out. There's nothing to say they can't win here. And so I did tip the Warriors here in our preview show. They had plenty of players out at that stage, and throughout the week, they continued to lose even more players. So I was super nervous before kickoff. I'll admit, personal betting-wise, I did switch off my tip of the Warriors, and I did go the way of the Dolphins, so I stuffed up there. But the Warriors were missing 1,300 plus games of NRL experience on the sideline. The Dolphins wouldn't have had that in their whole lineup, I don't believe. Maybe Kenny Bromwich, Felice Kafusi would get those numbers up, but for the most part, man, I reckon the Warriors had more experience sidelined than the Dolphins have in their whole roster. Missing an insane amount of players at home for Indigenous round, coming into the bye. They just beat the Panthers in Magic round and shocked them. They now win again as underdogs, and then they go into the bye. So that's 6 competition points there for the Warriors, who I still believe can play finals this year once they get their players back. Brilliant fight for them for the full 80, finding a way to win when they started the game on the back foot with the Dolphins going forward there. And for the Dolphins, I'm once again questioning how the hell is this side now or at any stage of this competition a top 4 side? They simply cannot win games out of Queensland, it seems. And they've been blessed with Magic Round, home games, games in Townsville, games in Gold Coast. So they've had a lot of opportunity to play in Queensland, rather. But the stat remains. Of their 16 wins in franchise history, only 2 have been outside of the state of Queensland. Now, they had a great opportunity here to build momentum into their season against a very underwhelming Warriors side, and they failed miserably. This is a Dolphins side that it seems Wayne Bennett can get them up for games they're not supposed to win, like he did the Maroons in the 2020 Origin Series. But then when they're supposed to win and they're favourites, they just cannot manage that expectation or that pressure to any standard at all. They didn't score a single point from the 27th minute until the 75th minute, when at that point the game was more or less over. Now, they did bring it within 1 try, but I don't think too many people were feeling they were going to come back. They still had momentum against them in that, and they fought hard, they got momentum back, and then their star player Hammer knocks it on. Warriors score the next play. It's moments like that the top 4 teams do not do, and that's why I'm just surprised the Dolphins have sat in the top 4 for so long of the 2024 season. If this Warriors side was full strength, this would have been a bloodbath. They would have put 60 points on this Dolphins side, in my opinion. And I am hesitant to react so big based off 1 loss, Winnie. So I won't say for certain, but I will put it out there. I will not be shocked in the slightest if this Dolphins side goes from top 4 to bottom 4 by the time this competition finishes. That's how concerned I am about their inability to perform outside of Queensland when traveling on the road. I'm sorry, mate. I know you're a big Dolphins fan and you probably disagree with that. How did you see this game, and how did you see that stray comment by myself at the end there?
Well, so now I've got to address the Dolphins first. Look, I am a bit surprised, not because I'm a Dolphins fan. I just think what you're saying is too extreme. I mean, it looked like they're going to roll to a regulation victory. Maybe they got a little bit too comfortable because the Finns did lead this game by double digits. Again, it's a 16-6 at one point. Herbie Farnworth looking untouchable. The Hammer's been back a couple of weeks now. Still, so who's still to come back in for the Finns? Like Flegler is a Origin level prop. He'll rejoin the team. Look, I thought you were going to say you won't be surprised if the Finns miss the 8, which I think is a reasonable comment because I've said all along I see the Finns, acknowledging all the recent form as more like fringe finals, not fringe top 4, just where they happen to sit on the ladder. Impressive all the same, some of the wins have been. You just didn't feel there was that level about this team.
Winnie, if I can interject quickly, the only player to return is Tommy Flegler because Tom Gilbert won't be back this year.
Obviously, because you have gotten back Hammer and Herbie recently. So this is close to kind of what their best available side is at this point in time. Bottom 4 is too far, is it overreaction, and that's not what we want to do. And you mentioned that, like, if the Warriors were full strength, they would have won by 60. But the funny thing is, when you expect them to do something is when they don't. And I really talked about this in the last month, that it was a critical juncture in the Warriors season. I thought I pinpointed the game where we'd get the best out of them. And I thought that game was about 3 weeks ago in Newcastle. That was the one the Warriors really needed to win. And while it was only 1 try in it, it was alarming when the Warriors lost that. And I said, to save the Warriors season, they have to win one of the next 2, which was Roosters Panthers, which looked basically impossible the way they were going with the injuries they had. But actually, as we know, they got the win over the Panthers. And then they won again today. You said 1,300 games. 1,300? Yes.
Yep, 1,300.
1,300 games on the sideline. Let's try and name it. Like Sean Johnson is out. RTS is out. Tohu Harris is out. Wade Egan is out. But just like that, just to set the scene, those guys, we knew they were out. But then since Tuesday, AFB was dropped. Nickel Klukstad was ruled out. There's another. Rocco Berry was meant to
Berry.
return, then he didn't play. Not that he's played a lot of games, but he's one of their best players. So you're talking about serious top-line talent. Did I miss any major names? I named about 7 of their best players.
So they're also that Wade Egan, Kurt Capewell, and Tohu Harris. Oh, you did mention?
I forgot Capewell too. You know, the big signing. So, yeah, like I actually did like I liked the Warriors in the sense that they were an underdog. I think I looked closely at the plus half a try on Tuesday, and the market was like Dolphins slight favourites, but I was very happy to not be on that bet when the game kicked off today. Like I thought the Finns should win with all those outs. When Tenny's Lesniak shifts to fullback, but then you take away his finishing on the right wing, though he did lay one on and he scored anyway. But just awesome fight back by the Warriors. That's my finishing point. Looked like they just wouldn't have enough to handle the Dolphins. As I said, the Dolphins were running through them with ease, but the Warriors turned the game. Probably should have had a try right before halftime. Really bizarre moment where Bostock drops it, and it's not called that he was interfered with in the air. And I actually think the next touch is backwards by Warriors and then grounded by Warriors, but no one appealed, and it potentially could have even challenged. And then, the key moment later in the game is Warriors are getting a bit of ascendancy. You put up a bomb, Hammer spills it. The Warriors actually able to score a try off that set, hit the front, and didn't look back. So massive the Warriors, as you say, to go into the bye off a couple of really solid upset wins where they had found themselves down and up against it in both games with so many players out. They can still do things this season. I know there's a lot of Warriors fans now, but one other point to make on this game is that there's a bit of argument in the comments. I don't think the Dolphins, and I'm not saying this is a Dolphins fan. I was happy for the Warriors, even though I was a bit disappointed because the Dolphins have had an awesome year. The Finns did not get the rub of the green in this game, in terms of generally how the ruck was policed. At one point, with like 5 or 10 minutes to go, was like 5-6 against to none, 4 penalties to none. You know,
that's the New Zealand crowd, though, man. They are crazy loud. Yeah,
you're going to win that count, but to have it that lopsided is tough in a game that finishes with a 4-point margin.
My final point actually comes from Jake on Instagram. He said that Tane Tuapiki as well. That's another one we forgot there, who was subsequently
out as well.
Yeah, so just
hasn't played a lot of games, but important player.
Very important for them, particularly with how much.
And Tamara Martin absolutely stepped up, as Sid's mentioned in the comments there, as he did last week. They don't win these 2 without it.
No way. That I think there was a time in that game where he got 3 repeat sets, and the Dolphins went long on all 3, and that kind of summed up the momentum was with the Warriors well and truly with that crowd so loud and vocal. Great work by the Warriors. Let's turn our attention now to State of Origin. Before we get to the official Blues team and our predicted Maroons team, we will be doing an Origin special where we will have special bets, previews, punts. Stay tuned to the TryPod Facebook group for an announcement on that from Winnie, unless you have a date and time at this time.
So what we'll do, Clarky, is we'll make our Tuesday show next week. Will actually be an Origin show. No one's going to want to hear about round 14 when Origin is 24 hours away. So the show you're used to in a week will be Origin, and then we'll come in with an extra show Thursday night with a little bit of Origin recap, and then there'll be no footy Thursday night, and then we'll preview the round. So that's how we'll do it. So there will be 2 shows next week, but Origin will be front of most people's minds. And yeah, let's talk about the teams now. I'm just Googling, is there any news about Queensland? But they did say the Queensland team might not be named till tomorrow. So we'll just speculate on that one. But
Queensland have typically named their team on Monday. And usually in the Blues name their team on Sunday, they name a squad. They don't name a team. So Michael Maguire has actually named a team. Do you want to start with the official Blues team?
Yeah, let's put the official team. I don't even think we need to put ours on there. We'll just say what we would have done differently. Yeah. And let us know in the comments too, what's your biggest surprise? I'll let you go first, Clarky. You can your instant live reaction to this team.
Awesome. All right, you guys can see the New South Wales Blues team on screen. If you're listening as a podcast later, grab up an image. We'll go through it. Let's go through and talk position by position. I mean, we can't go past number 1, Winnie. We've got to start there. Your thoughts on Dylan Edwards over James Tedesco. Did you have it that way?
Yeah, I thought you had to pick Edwards. I did pick him in my team. I just think is the player that's in greater form. I thought there was a little bit of slippage from Teddy last year, and it's tough because he was the incumbent captain. But you kind of go back to like Teddy captained the Blues to the last 2 series they lost. I'd even throw the Kangaroos in there. He captained the Kangaroos, not mistaken, and they got beat by the greatest ever margin they have in history to New Zealand. Like at some point, you've got to pick the better option if he's available. Plus, you do feel like it's a changing of the guard. It's a new coach. Madge comes in. He wants to pick players, of course, to win the series this year, but a little bit to set up his reign, which, if successful, he wants to be multiple seasons. Any other thoughts about Edwards in over Tedesco? Let us know in the comments too. Would you have gone that direction?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by this one. Now, I did have Dylan Edwards in my rolling predicted Blues side throughout this entire year, but just this round, I did change it to James Tedesco. I just felt with the injury cloud over Nico Hines and an uncertainty around who would play 6, I had Teddy in there because I feel he's more of a creative fullback and he can create for others around him, whereas someone like Dylan Edwards is more of a consistent fullback that's going to give you big meters. But when there's uncertainty around the halves with injuries, that's why I leaned the way of Teddy. But Dylan Edwards, I don't think there's a player in history that has earned a Blues debut more. I seriously don't. This dude could have been there the last 3-4 years and it wouldn't have been unfair.
The
Wingers.
last thing I would say about it would be, I think Edwards' form is superior. I think he's basically undeniable. But if you had him close enough, there was an argument that Teddy's been there so many times. He is a great leader and has so much experience. You could pick him if you thought that those were the edge. But if you felt the gap was sufficient enough that you just need to pick the best player at such an important position, I think Edwards is the right choice. Let me run through the outside back so we don't have to touch on too long. But what stands out to you about former Penrith teammates To'o and Crichton play on one side? We'll presume that will be the left side.
Yep.
But it actually could be either because I've seen To'o and Crichton both play left and right. I'm just guessing that Lomax may favour the right wing. On the other side, Swali'i is at centre, but Swali'i has played left centre for the Roosters, so it could be flipped too. If we assume that Crichton and Swali'i play the same position they do for their clubs, then it would be Swali'i left centre with Lomax left wing and Crichton right centre with To'o right wing.
And I think as well, when we talk origin, and particularly in the outside backs and the centres, historically we do see a lot of fullbacks selected in there. And I think an element of that is the versatility, being able to shift a fullback if there is an injury. And that's what Joseph Suaalii provides. However, he doesn't even play centre at Clubland. He plays wing at Clubland. And I know that that's ironic to say because I just said having a fullback in the centres helps, but I just don't think Suaalii is the best option there at centre. I had Jesse Ramian for the longest time. I thought about it more and more as it came towards the deadline today, and I actually did switch that to Latrell Mitchell just because he has been there before. And as Andrew Johns said, when you're struggling in Clubland, sometimes going into that origin setup and being around great players reminds you of who you are and gets you back to that form that you need. And Latrell Mitchell certainly seems like a player that could do that. But Joseph Suaalii, as a Maroons fan, I like it, mate. Zach Lomax, a deserved spot on the wing there. Brian To'o and Stephen Crichton, they select themselves. There was no way you'd leave them out.
When you say as a Maroons fan you like it, do you mean just admitting that you're a Maroons fan but you like the team, or you like it because you think it's a mistake?
I think it's a mistake. I think Joseph... Well, no, I don't think it's a mistake. That's too harsh. I think Jesse Ramian was a better option if you wanted an out-and-out centre that's in form. And I think Latrell Mitchell was a better option if you want someone with experience that can shift to fullback if you require. I think that both of them in that respective debate trumps Joseph Suaalii, but I don't think it's a bad selection.
And we acknowledge we are two Queenslanders talking about the Blues. And I picked my team as well, so I'm going to refer to like who I would have had. I tried to pick the team that I would least like to face, just from what I observed watching the footy every game. But again, it is, we're not Blues supporters. I looked at the Blues back line like this. I thought Stephen Crichton, I have to have him, and To'o I have to have. And to me, I was like, that's my right side. So then I was looking like, who's my left centre? And so Ramian was in the mix. Ramian does play right centre. I suppose Crichton is so versatile that he could have been able to shift. I also would have picked Latrell Mitchell. I felt like I saw enough out of Latrell the last couple of weeks and even last night that I would have given him that left centre spot because I think he's the most dangerous player. I think he's played enough rep level at that position that he can play in the front line. Even last night was Johnston went to fullback when they lost Whiten, and Latrell actually played 6. And I actually feel like Latrell gives you cover in the halves for that reason. However, I can understand the new wave. Now, to correct something you said, that Swali'i is playing wing for his club. I mean, he has played wing when Tupou was out or when Dom Young was suspended. But full-strength Roosters, Swali'i is the left centre because obviously Tupou's outside him and the other side is Manu and Young. So I'm all for picking Swali'i. I didn't personally select him, but I think he's that talented, that powerful, and I don't think it's a wrong selection. And I did pick Lomax as my winger, as you did. I thought his form was pretty much undeniable. Strong carry, playmaking winger, but particularly the aerial prowess. I think it's such an important part of the game these days. And in fact, like that pairing of Swali'i and Lomax, they're going to snare a lot of high balls. Let's move to the halves, mate. It looks like Luai is picked at 6 when most everybody thought that would be Matt Burton's time. And Nico at 7, no doubt with an asterisk about the calf, but he'll definitely go into camp.
And that's probably the biggest thing to talk about here. I don't think anyone's shocked or upset that Jerome Luai and Nico Hines are named as the halves there. It makes the most sense based on what both players have done in Luai's case for the jersey before and in winning 3 premierships, and for Hines being the best, most informed half that is available to the Blues right now. The big question I have from this is, if Nico Hines is unable to overcome this calf injury, you can see Matt Burton and Luke Keary there as 18th and 19th man. My question is, would you move Luai to 7 and have Burton as your 6th, or would you bring Luke Keary in as a halfback and give him control of this side? I probably would lean to a Burton and Luai combo because they have played together for the Panthers. How do you lean if Nico Hines is unavailable?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely pick, because you've even got the issue with Keary. I know it doesn't really make sense. Like if he's medically cleared, but he just seems more susceptible to concussions as well. And I do kind of feel that while Cleary's had awesome moments this year, I kind of feel like his time in the rep arena has passed. So if Hines, the calf is just giving him issues through the prep, they don't want to risk it, or he's medically ruled out, I'd absolutely would go Burton and play Luai at 7. And if you've got any question marks, can Luai play 7? Those have actually been answered in the last 3 weeks since Nathan's been out, really. So I actually thought they would go that way, potentially. I'm surprised Burton is on the outside looking in at this point.
Especially because Burton's kicking game is able to really change momentum. There's not a bomb like is in the game where the outside backs and fullback genuinely have to decide, do I catch this or let it bounce, and potentially do make errors. And in Origin, where the teams are so tight, the intensity is so tight, oftentimes the only way to change that momentum back in your favor is through your kicking game. That's why players like Andrew Johns and Jonathan Thurston are remembered as greats of the arena. They were able to do that. The front row of Jake Trbojevic, Reece Robson, and Payne Haas. Suppose the only thing we need to discuss there when he is Api Coruscant. Did you have him as your 9 or 14?
Absolutely. I think Coruscant is arguably the best hooker in the game. I am shocked, actually, that Api's not in there. As you said that, I was like scanning the bench because I just thought I'd read his name, but you're right. Like he's completely omitted. I did not have Robson, so I had Api, and I actually thought if you want to employ the tactics that we've seen Penrith do with Mitch Kenny, we saw New South Wales do last year, you want to put someone else in there for the contact to absorb the sting out of the game, the first 20. You've got McInnes, who can clearly play dummy half and may play some dummy half, but McInnes has been named as starting lock. So anyway, I definitely thought Api should play the bulk of minutes at 9. Madge doesn't have him in the team at all. Robson, I didn't think his form has wowed me this year. I guess Egan wasn't available. Well, who else? I'm trying to think. Was there any other? No, I suppose
there's Damien Cook, really, but with the South.
Cook's like, again, kind of a guy whose time has passed. No, I just thought it would be between Coruscant and be able to be spelled by McInnes. So, yeah. and I thought maybe Robson gets picked, but only in tandem with Coruscant. So I am very surprised about that. And then I've got to be honest, I did not have Jake Trbojevic in my 17 either, and I completely get it. He will not let you down. great character, great leader, great person, the type of person you want to be your captain. But I think it's a mistake. I think your captain has to be one of your best players, your players that you pick first, and they're undisputed in their position. Where I really am not sure if Jake Trbojevic is among the best 3 props available to New South Wales. And if he is, because of intangibles, I still don't believe he's one of your best players, nor is he going to be on the field the whole time. You know what? I actually would have considered Coruscant as a captain, but the other obvious choice would have been Isaiah Yeo to me. However, I can see Yeo is on the bench. They're going to start with McInnes if we're to believe this. So I suppose if Madge looked at it from that's the 13 he wants to go to war with, and obviously he felt his captain has to be one of the 13 out there. And, you know, the likes of Nathan Cleary's not available. Cam Murray could have also been another great state captain. That you're starting to get slim pickings. Like, who else are you going to give the captaincy to? I suppose Stephen Crichton is a club captain. Nico Hines is a club captain. But his position in the team's a bit more tenuous. Like, you make Nico the captain and he has a bad game, you want to swap him out for game 2. So I guess Madge felt he had to pick someone who was sure will get for the series. But as a Queenslander, I kind of feel like, look, Trbojevic doesn't even captain his own club. A Queenslander does that. So you can't go wrong with Jake Trbojevic. And I guess based on who Madge picked, it's just not who I would have picked. Let us know if you are a Blues fan watching along. Are you happy with that? The hooker and front row rotation. If we could just maybe add to the conversation, the only other prop in the team is Lenu off the bench. And there is another middle on the bench, Isaiah Yeo, who I dare say, you know, could be on the field at the same time as McInnes too. And one of them could essentially play like a loose forward.
Yeah, I'll start with the selection of Jake Trbojevic. As a Maroons fan, he's actually one that I penciled in, like realistically, one of the first ones. I had him in this squad and I had him starting. Just from what he brings to this Origin side over a number of years and his experience there, that workhorse mentality that someone like a Cameron McInnes has that we're now seeing debut, I think that's really important to Origin. One of the other things I think that's important to Origin and why I think it's a big miss not having Api Coruscant here is, of course, he's played at the Panthers before with other spine members that include Jerome Luai and Dylan Edwards. And so I think if you're going to have those two there, then you do have Api Coruscant. Now, admittingly, I didn't have him at 9. I had him at 14 coming off the interchange like he had started to do in his final year at the Panthers with Mitch Kenny starting. I thought Robson could get through the tough stuff and still give you enough in attack. And then Coruscant can come on when the Maroons middle forwards are fatigued and really draw up that connection with Luai and Dylan Edwards to create points. So I do think they might have missed something a little bit there, not having Coruscant anywhere in this team at all. Moving on to the back rowers, Winnie, we've got Liam Martin, Angus Crichton, and Cameron McInnes there at lock. Anything you like or don't like there?
McInnes at lock over Yeo is a curious one, but I do get it as well. And there's a link up that the way he plays alongside Nico Hines. Like there's a logical, first receiver versus lock tandem, as opposed to if Cleary was available, then I'm sure Isaiah Yeo would be starting. And I would have definitely had McInnes in my team. I thought McInnes off the bench, he covers 9, covers prop, and covers lock. Understandable. Crichton and Liam Martin, absolutely. They were both going to be in my team, and Liam Martin had to start. For me, I actually think I went Homole Olaquatu, who has deadly right edge second rower in the comp at the moment. So I would have started Olaquatu, but he's on the bench there. And I guess the other second row I can mention now, Hudson Young. I did also have him in my 17, I think. He's made for Origin. Didn't have a great returns last year, but actually had an injury in the game, which is why he played a limited role. And I also think you need contingencies in Origin, and that's something we haven't talked about yet. Maybe we'll talk about contingencies, like what do you do with injuries after you probably have your say on the back rowers.
Yeah, man, I think for the back rowers here, no surprises for me in this second row of Liam Martin and Angus Crichton. I think that's logical and makes the most sense. Martin's won 3 comps. Crichton is the informed back rower of the competition. Where I do question is the selection of Cameron McInnes over Isaiah Yeo, because up until this year, Cameron McInnes has been a specialist bench player for the for the Sharks. And I think he's done that for the Blues. Not only could he have done that and brought that energy from the bench like he did for the Sharks when Finucane was their full-time lock, But then you also have the option to bring him on at 9 and give Reece Robson a spell if you absolutely require, rather. I just feel that if Robson's not quite performing at 9 and the fatigue is starting to get into the middle, shifting Cameron McInnes there, who will be equally fatigued from playing lock, probably doesn't help too much. Additionally to that, what does Isaiah Yeo bring from the bench? We've rarely seen him come from the bench in the past, I want to say half decade. Now, we know he's not an energy player. He's not an impact player. And he's not someone that's going to come off the bench and have that big hit up or that big tackle that motivates and uplifts his team behind him. He's a consistent 80-minute workhorse like a Jake Trbojevic that is starting. So I do wonder what's going on there and if that is the way it will line up. Additionally, we spoke about connection and cohesion and chemistry, playing with players you know, Dylan Edwards, Jerome Luai, Isaiah Yeo. Isaiah Yeo is he's essentially a spine player for the Penrith Panthers with their system. Maybe Madge is cautious where in previous years when the Blues had Cleary there as well, it was too much Panthers football and it didn't really work. Maybe he's cautious of that, but I do question that selection as well. Overall, the bench, Isaiah Yeo, Hamoli Olakau'atu, Spencer Leniu, Hudson Young. I like Hamoli Olakau'atu there. I think he'll bring a lot of X factor from the bench, which is something you need in Origin games where it is typically low scoring, especially in the opener. Spencer Leniu, I do question. I would have preferred Terrell May, someone who's in better form and has played more club football this year. I don't think Spencer Leniu is a bad pick. He's been brilliant coming off the bench for a number of years, but I am a firm believer you need to earn your Origin colours. And let's be honest, Spencer Leniu is someone who has not earned his Origin colours. Racially abused someone, copped his suspension on the chin, has undergone that suspension. Fair play there, but I think he's only played 1 or 2 games since he's come back. For me, that's not deserving your Origin spot, and I think Terrell May was more deserving there, but I still think it's a great selection. Spencer Leniu will bring that energy. Hudson Young can play middle, can play back row, kind of in form. I would have preferred another big bopper there. I can't think exactly who I had there, if I'm honest, but I didn't have Hudson Young. I had him as 18th man. I had him close to the squad, but not quite in. What do you make of that Blues bench?
Yeah, like I would have picked Stefano Utoikamanu over Leniu. I'm looking at whether you had Stefano on your bench. That was probably your choice as well. I had Junior Barlow over Jake. Again, like I felt like the props didn't really pick themselves. I felt like who else is out there? Like even a Daniel Saifidi. I was looking up Paseka's eligibility, one of the form props in the comp, but I understand he's not eligible for New South Wales. He is?
Yeah, he could play for the Blues.
Because he's Tongan, right? But
I thought that.
Yeah,
because he doesn't play for the
tier 2.
Kiwis. Yeah, exactly. Yep, you got it.
I looked it up and I didn't see he was eligible. So there you go. Like that's even another like maybe outside the box option. And the other guy I could have picked, but his team struggled, but he was great yesterday, is Keon Kalamatangi.
Yep.
It might not be really his fault that Souths have struggled so much. And if you pick Kalamatangi, he's pretty good on your bench because he can play lock. You could easily play him prop if you needed to for a spell, but also covers an edge. So Leniu,
played hooker for Tonga in the World Cup, so he can cover hooker as well.
That's right. But Leniu, you understand that's just that aggression, and you don't need like big minutes out of everyone on your bench, and he's going to come in there and play that firebrand style. And what was clear to me when I was looking at like who New South Wales could pick was there's a wealth, an embarrassment of riches at back row, and less obvious form leaders so I thought usually I want like kind of 2 or 3 middles on my bench, and I might only need 1 second rower on my bench. But because this team is kind of like stacked with second rowers, like you can see Hudson Young and Olakau'atu on the bench, and I had 2 back rowers on my bench. I think I had Crichton and Young, on my bench where I started Olakau'atu. But I think that's fine because I do think Martin can easily play in the middle. Like he can shift in if you were to bring one of these guys on. I also think, just to talk contingency, like final point, with HIAs these days, more than ever, you're almost certain that someone from 1 to 7 is going to have to leave the field at some stage. And so what do New South Wales do? And I suppose like Hudson Young can play centre, Angus Crichton potentially also. And then as long as you've got somebody who can play centre, you have Stephen Crichton who's at centre, then he could play anywhere. He could play wing. He could play fullback, if required. So I suppose that, as could Swalini too. So I suppose you didn't need to pick a backline player. as a bench utility because you'd have no game plan to use them, and you can just shuffle. As I said, a second rower moves to center, and everyone shuffles out. If you lose a half in this game, maybe like a Stephen Crichton has to go in and play 6, something like that. And if Burton is your 18th man, then, if you lose someone because of foul play or whatever, then, someone like Burton could come in. That's how I think the Blues, that's the plan at least. So it's not the exact team I would have picked, but we didn't know with a new coach coming in. That's our instant reaction to it anyway. Let us know your final thoughts, guys. And Clarky, anything else you got to say, or else we just do 5 minutes on Queensland?
Let's move. Happy to move to the Maroons, man. We've been going for an hour and 15 now. So
I won't actually predict what Billy will do because, he's got his own method. He's surprised me before. And some rumors have come out. I think some of the players that I've picked won't be right, but I just picked what I thought would be the Maroons' strongest side, as you did, Clarky. Let's just see any comments. Yeah, how did Lenu get picked? Need to find a place for Burton and Appy, says Ryan. Undertaker saying Barlow's a slug. I get it. And his team wasn't informed. I just thought there was much for muchness. There was on several middles. And look, throw Barnett in there as well, who actually is 20th man. And Begeni says Kalamatangi's been shocking. I just think he's a victim of a team that's not in form. And I thought he was about South's best last night. And I know he could do a job very close to getting a Blues debut before this year too. Let's put up your Maroons team, Clarky. And I'm just going to give my instant reaction. So you've gone Dave Fafita, fair enough. Left edge. You've gone Fodawaker at captain, is a bit bold. Bo Fermor makes it. Oh wait, if people who are listening to this, that's actually the Titans 1-13 from today.
Mate, you got me. I was about to say you brought up the wrong. I think you got the wrong image.
What I will do, I have a graphic now that has my team and Clarky's team. The person who made the graphic didn't put which one of our team it is, but on the left is Clarky's Queensland, and on the right is Winnie's Queensland. This is not the team that has been named. This is not the team that has been rumored. Okay, so Billy Slater will name his side tomorrow. This was our teams of what we thought would be the strongest side Queensland could pick. So let us have it. Where have we gone wrong? Clarky, we've got the same back five. Walsh, Coates, Holmes, Hammer, and Cobbo. So and I don't think anyone would really argue, though we have left out Taulagi. Yep. And perhaps Billy will pick Taulagi because there's rumours about Cobbo on the bench. But the first point of contention, I think you're going to be on the same side as Billy. You've picked Dearden at 6. I did actually go Ezra Mam.
I think there's a great argument for Ezra Mam. In a big game last year, he played as good as he possibly could for the Broncos and was, millimetres away from a Clive Churchill medal, realistically. If Broncos win, he is your Clive Churchill medalist. The reason why I've gone Tom Dearden is he's been there before, first and foremost, and he has won there before. So he does know what to expect from the Billy Slater system and structure there for the Queensland Maroons. Further to that point, I actually think Tom Dearden has been the most in-form 5/8 of the competition so far this year. I've really loved his form. And although Cameron Munster was never a question, if healthy, that he was going to be there, Tom Dearden has certainly locked himself in as that 6 long-term, or potentially 7, depending on the future that Slater wants to take it. And then I think Ezra Mam will be your long-term 6. And that really leaves between Sam Walker, whether either he's a 7 or if Tom Dearden is your 7 there. So both are players of the Maroons' future. I suppose that's the point I'm trying to get out here. But I have gone with Tom Dearden at this time.
And Dearden maybe just did enough on Friday. Was one of the Cowboys' best. Attack has not been the issue for North Queensland. And I totally get it. Like the history, the trust there, defensively as well. That's the way Billy sounds like is going to go too since Munster got injured. I thought, because I thought he had that higher gear, that higher level of ability that could scare the opponent, like we saw in the grand final last year. I also thought Walsh is your focal point of your attack. Mam and Walsh, they're going to link up predominantly on the left side. There's that club connection. In Origin, you might only need to score 2 or 3 tries to win a game. I could just see a moment of brilliance between Mam and Walsh. That could be match winning, and that could be the player New South Wales less wants to face. but that's why I went man, but it was really close. And it does sound like Billy will go with Tom Dearden. If I put up, that's the confirmed Blues team. If I put up our personal Maroons teams, I'll talk through kind of the front row. We both got Lindsay Collins. You went Hunt, I went Grant. Look, Hunt may well start at 9. We both swapped them 9 and 14. I just put Grant there because I think I want Grant playing the most of the minutes at 9. But, understand that rotation there. And then I went Cotter, front row. You've actually gone Carrigan. So talk us through that choice. You've partially put Carrigan as a prop, maybe because you feel Queensland's slightly thinner on props. You wanted to convert, but also so that you can open up a starting lock spot to Jermaine Hopgood, who I did find a position for, but Hopgood's on my bench.
I think for me, look, if Tino's there, if Tom Gilbert's there, if Tommy Flegler's available, then I do not start Patrick Carrigan at prop. The fact that he has a 10 on his back for me instead of a 13 doesn't change an absolute thing. What I really wanted was I didn't want Jermaine Hopgood coming off the bench and Ruben Cotter starting at lock there, or Ruben Cotter prop and Carrigan at lock. I wanted to leave some explosiveness and some experience off the bench there, and that's why I opted to start Jermaine Hopgood. Because you're right, these Origin contests are so closely contested, and 1 or 2 tries is often the difference, especially in the opener. And I'll just hate as a Maroons fan to be locked in a really tough arm battle, or an arm wrestle rather, with the Blues, and then we're going to go to a bench of Jermaine Hopgood on debut. I'd rather start him, and if things aren't going to plan there, or if Carrigan needs a blower, then we can bring someone like Ruben Cotter, who is an absolute gun, into the middle there. So that's why I went that direction.
So we're more so just talking about, minutes and rotation and how they're deployed. But I do think Carrigan's just been the best lock in the competition this year. It's been unbelievable. And I get your point, the way he plays, it's not really that different if you to the front row. He can definitely handle that workload as well. And obviously, most importantly for Queensland, they want Carrigan in the middle for a long time. I thought same with Hopgood, like he covers 13, but you can play him as a prop if you need to. But I love that he has that offload in his game to break open the game. Look, we've both got 2 middles on our bench. So you've gone Cotter and Fodawaker, who captained the Titans to a great win today. And I also thought had to be in the team. Titans player of the season last year, and adds that punch from the bench. So I also had Fodawaker on my bench. And as I said before, I've got Hopgood on my bench. You've got Cotter. They've kind of swapped roles there, but we've both got the same second rowers, Nanai and Fafita. Right, Fafita left, Nanai right. But the rumours today is that Fafita won't even make the side. So I do not know. I reckon the man that I've picked on the bench as my one kind of edge forward is Bo Fermor could take Fafita's spot. Such has his form been, including in the upset today. But I was close to giving a position to Jaden Sewer. He was also really in my calculations, and Sewer gets the kind of edge forward spot on your bench. I'd say, Queensland's come off back-to-back series wins, same coach. You and I have pretty similar teams, and we obviously picked completely independently of who we would like, but you don't have to make as many changes to a winning team. So there wasn't probably not as many points of contention to talk about. But any other observations you've got from the sides we've picked?
I love your inclusion of Bo Fermor there on the bench. I think he's someone who covers more of a back row centre option off the bench. The reason I went Jaden Sewer for the Origin opener, I keep harping on about it, low scoring, tough contest in the middle. Sewer can play in that back row, but I'd also feel comfortable if he was playing prop or lock for rotational minutes there as well. And as you touch on, our lineups are very similar. The differences mainly come around how we're rotating our middles. But apart from that, and apart from the hooker scheme of what we've gone for there, the reason I went Benny Hunt instead of Grant starting was just I feel like Grant's more explosive off the bench from hooker than Hunt is. And I feel like if Hunt has that rest on the bench, he can then return as a 13 and offer a second halfback kind of style there, which could be inducive to some more points there for the Maroons if they need down the final stretch. Let's say they were behind by a try, then Benny Hunt would be a bit more fresh coming into that lock role, having already done his part at hooker. But you're right, man. Our teams are so similar. It's mainly our differences are around rotations in the middle and our edge forwards. Again,
my team, Winnie's team, is on the right. Clarkie's on the left. If you're viewing, let us know in the comments, would there be anything you would change? Again, this was not our prediction of what will be named. This is who we liked, just as a discussion point. I have read the rumor that Cobbo could be picked from the bench. So that probably leads me to the final point. What's your contingency? If someone in the back line gets injured or has to go off HIA, I'm looking at Queensland. I'm looking at, could Ben Hunt play centre if he had to? It obviously covers your halves. But you've also got Nanai, who I think could easily shift one out, play centre, and Fermor on my bench would cover that, would be an option there. And then as soon as you can shift someone to centre, just like New South Wales, well, then you've got the Hammer and Val in your centres, and then obviously they can shift one out or, fullback if, heaven forbid, something happens to beautiful Reese. However, because more than ever players are having to be removed from games for injury or particularly HIA, maybe Billy feels like he actually needs a backline player on his bench. I feel like Brimson would have been the perfect choice if available, but he's injured. So Billy's looking at Cobbo maybe covering 1 to 5, and maybe also feeling, if this is true, that he's picked a lot of players that can handle a lot of minutes. So when he's looking at his ideal rotation, he's not actually seeing the need for 4 players to rotate too many of his forwards, because he wants to leave a lot of those guys out there for longer stints. Therefore, you do pick that backline player that gives you that more specialist in the what's really a likelihood that you lose someone along the way in the outside backs. So yeah, I'm very curious to see. Like, I'm hearing Billy will pick Dearden. That's fine. Very curious to see who his starting second rowers are then, if it's true he's not picking for Feeder, and what the bench will look like if it's true that Cobbo, obviously if Cobbo's on the bench, Taulagi must be in the wing. And then Billy might be going with that Cowboys combination of Taulagi beside Holmes, which is the combo that won the series last year, right? But is there any other kind of rumors you've heard? You've got your ear close to the ground. Anything else you're going to speculate about who Billy will pick rather than should pick?
No, there was a few stuff from Peter Bedell in the Career Mail today, but nothing too firm. Probably the only one that I haven't posted on my page was that Ruben Cotter was going to play edge, and that kind of fit in tandem with the news that Dave Fafita was expected.
Is that a rumor? Yes, and Cotter has. I think he was forced to when Queensland lost someone early in a game, and then he was just about
so well. They put him there for the rest of the series,
right? So we know Cotter's certainly capable, and I have also heard the rumor that Hopgood's going to get a debut. And we both agree with that. We both got him in our team. Any other kind of comments coming through? Can you send narcotics to my house? All right. On that note, it might be time to wrap it up, mate. Massive pod. We've gone longer than a game of footy here, but you can tell how much Origin gets the blood pumping, mate. We spent about 30 or 40 minutes just covering team speculation, and that's what it's all about, mate. Origin fever.
100%, mate. We are the only sport in the world where a state competition is more important than national competition. But State of Origin is a beast like none other. Thank you very much to everyone that has been here with us for this long edition tonight of the TryPod, recapping what was a fantastic Indigenous round. We'll be back next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. to preview round 13 and hear this man's best bets. Take care of yourselves, behave, get 8 hours of sleep, drink plenty of water, and do all that good stuff. Winnie, over to you to farewell the show.
Thanks again, as always, to everyone that tunes in. Yeah, we'll see you in under 48 hours. I actually do like the abbreviated rounds with no Origin players. I feel like you get a glimpse at some of the other players that are on the fringes or coming through. And I also like the challenge of trying to predict how the games will go, because I feel like a lot of uncertainty, a lot of new factors is in our favour, because it makes it harder for them to set the correct line. So historically, I've always liked these rounds. At least I'm going to go into it at 2-1. We've got a long way to go to kind of redeem what's been such a bad couple of months leading up to today. But all we can do it is 1 week at a time. So have a great start to your week, guys, and then we'll see you on Tuesday night.